Today's lesson, 8.1, we'll be talking about adding and subtracting polynomials. Now, I know that I'm gone, but I have formed this video to be formatted just like your guided notes. Remember, if you do not have your guided notes, please ask the sub for your guided notes. I have a packet for you with your name on it because you were gone on the day that I handed them out. So please use that and get that before you start watching the video. Okay? So polynomials. Now, first thing, before we do anything with polynomials, we need to have some definitions, terms, solidified before we start doing operations with them. So, the first one, monomial. We've kind of talked about this before when we were just adding and subtracting like terms. So monomial is a product of non-negative integer powers of variables. So some examples would be like 2x, 3x squared, and maybe negative 9xyz squared, something like that. Okay, those are kind of ones that are called monomials. So we're multiplying certain things to make one thing. Okay, a binomial is the sum of two monomials. So some examples would be like x squared plus 2 or 3x minus 6. Now, I did say sum. This is the same thing as 3x plus a negative 6. So I can always write it as addition if I want to. And then 2x squared plus 7x, or even 9zy plus 2 is another possibility. Okay? Now notice that none of those things that I wrote down are like terms to each other. So because I have x squared and 2 does not have an x squared. So therefore you can't put them together. 3x and 6 are not like terms, so you can't put them together. So keep that in mind when we're doing these polynomials, adding, subtracting. You got to put like terms together for you to be able to simplify. A polynomial is going to be a sum of 3 or more monomials. Okay, I should say or more, because you could have several different things in there. So like an example would be y squared plus 2y plus 4, or even 3xy plus 2zy plus 8 plus x would be a polynomial. Okay? A degree of a monomial is going to be the sum of the exponents of all the variables. Okay, so let's look at a couple. So if I have 2x, looking at the variable, notice that there is no number as an exponent, but remember it's always going to be a 1 there. Just like if you didn't have a number in front of the x, that would be a 1. So the number to the exponent when you don't write it is a 1. Okay, so the degree of 2x would be 1. If I have, let's say, negative 3x squared y times z cubed, then adding all these together, I have a 2. There's a 1 here that's not written for the y, and there's a 3. Okay, so 2 plus 1 plus 3 gets me 6. So the degree of negative 3x squared y z cubed is going to be 6. Okay, the degree of polynomial is going to be the highest degree of one of the monomials in the polynomial. Okay, so let's look at this. So if I have 4x squared plus 9x to the 8th plus 3xyz squared plus 4, then looking at each individual one, here 4x squared has a degree of 2. 9x8, or 9 times 8, or x to the 8th, has a power of 8. And then for 3xyz, x has 1, y has 1, and z has 2, so that gives me a 4. And then the 4 has no variables, so it has a 0 degree. So the highest degree of this polynomial is 8. So if I was looking at the degree of a polynomial for this polynomial, I would say 8, because that's the highest degree. Standard form is when all monomials in a polynomial are written in descending order according to their degree. So if I have 2x cubed plus 3 minus 5x plus x squared, then looking at these, this one's 3, this one's 0, this one's 1, and this one's 2. So I start with the highest degree, which is the 2x cubed, and then I go with the next one, so x squared, and the next one is negative 5x, and then plus 3. Okay, so then that would be my standard form of a polynomial when I put it in order. Okay, and then the leading coefficient is when your polynomial's in the correct order. So let's take this following polynomial. Then looking at the leading coefficient, so the highest degree variable, in this case 9x to the 5th, is going to be the highest degree, or the number that or term we put first. Then I look at the number attached to the variable. This would be the leading coefficient. Okay, so it's the number multiplied to the monomial with the highest degree of a polynomial. Okay, so those are some terms. Now we want to be able to add and subtract polynomials. So let's take this following polynomial. It's written better on your guided notes than it is here, but you have 3x squared minus 7x plus 9 plus negative 2 minus 5x squared plus 8x. Okay, so there's two different methods for adding polynomials, and there's a little description there telling you what to look for, what to do. So the horizontal method, give me a moment to write this. It says to group and combine like terms. Okay, so that means taking the ones that are like terms and then putting them together. So grouping them in parentheses. So I have a 3x squared, okay, and a negative 5x squared. So those are like terms because their variables are the same and the powers that those variables are 2 are the same. Okay. Then I have negative 7x and 8x. Those are like terms. Okay. So I'm going to group them together. And then you have 9 and negative 2. So 9 minus 2 would go together as well. So then combining means that I'm going to actually subtract. So there's 3x squareds minus 5x squareds. So 3 minus 5 would be negative 2, and the label to that would be x squared. So we don't make it x to the 4th. We don't cancel them out or anything. It's just like a label. Like if I had 7 inches plus 10 inches, I get 17 inches. I don't get 17 inches squared or anything. That's only in multiplication. So then here, negative 7x plus 8x. So negative 7 plus 8 gives me a positive 1. So I get 1x. And then 9 minus 2 is going to be 7. And so then that would be my polynomial, okay, when I'm adding them. Now the same thing applies for the vertical method, it's just oriented differently. Now notice the first thing that underneath the vertical method says is to align like terms in columns and combine them. So notice that here I have 3x squared and negative 5x squared directly over each other. And then I have negative 7x and 8x directly over each other, and 9 and negative 2 directly over here. So it's kind of a different way of grouping your stuff, but you're doing it visually rather than putting them in parentheses. Okay? So once you align like terms, then you want to actually combine them, like it says. So 3x squared plus negative 5x squared gives me negative 2x squared. Negative 7x plus 8x is going to be positive 1x. And 9 plus a negative 2 is going to be positive 7. Okay, so notice I got the same exact polynomial. No matter what method I used, it should get the same thing. Now, I'm showing you two different methods, not so that you use both, but for you to pick one that you like the best, and then use that one for all your problems. Now, I would ask you to maybe try both of them to see which one you like the best, or maybe it's obvious to you which one you like the best, but I just want you to pick one and use that, okay? It doesn't matter to me which one you use, just pick one and use it, okay? So next one, so here, let's do the same thing with a difference. So if I have a difference of two numbers, I'm taking the same polynomials, but I'm going to do it with those same two methods. It's a little different with the two methods, okay? Because of the subtraction, there's an extra step that we need to do, okay? So here, for example 2, horizontal method, there's a step before that we group, we have to distribute to the -1. So we're going to change it into an addition problem before we actually group and combine. Okay? So, taking the -1, I'm going to distribute through to each of my values, not just to the first, but to each of the ones behind the -1. Okay? So, that gives me 3x squared minus 7x plus 9. And then I get plus a positive 2 plus 5x squared minus 8x. So notice how each sign changed because I multiplied a -1 to each one, not just to the first one. Okay? That's the biggest mistake that every kid makes. Now I want to do the same thing I did before, is I want to group. So 3x squared goes with the 5x squared plus -7x minus 8x plus 9 plus 2. Okay, now I want to combine, so 3 plus 5 gives me 8x squared. -7 minus 8 gives me -15x, and 9 plus 2 gets me a positive 11. Okay, now I should get the same thing with my vertical method. Now here, you still align things vertically first, so 3x squared, 7x plus 9, and then do the same thing, so -5x squared plus 8x minus 2. Okay, now here, this is where the opposite happens. So you're distributing just like you did in the last one. So I'm going to change all the signs. So positive, so -5 becomes positive, 8 becomes negative, and 2 becomes positive. Notice how each sign changed. I can't stress that enough. And then 3x squared, now we want to combine. So 3x squared plus 5x becomes 8x squared. -7x plus a -8x is -15x. And then 9 plus 2 gives me 11. Notice that these two things are the same, so it doesn't matter which method you use, just pick one and use that for all of your problems. So example 3, here they say perform the given operations for the following polynomials. So I have mixed in addition and subtraction in here so that we could practice both. So I'll try to do different ways to show you more of both methods. So I'll try to split it into 2-2. So here, group method for this first one. Now actually, let's do vertical method because I want to show you something. So vertical method says to align vertically. Okay, so 6t squared is going to go above 11t squared, right? Now 10 and 8t are not like terms, so they do not go above each other in this sense. They go like this. Okay? So there is no value of t for the first polynomial, and there is no regular number for the second variable. so we don't put anything above each other because they're not like terms. So then now I just add down, so it's like saying that there's 0 here. Okay? So 6t squared plus 11t squared gives me 17 squared. And then 0t plus 8t gives me 8t. And then 10 plus 0 is 10. Now doing the aligned way makes it a little easier just to see visually that you're not adding to anything. But horizontally it works the same way, just that those things don't get grouped with anything. So they just stay the same thing. Okay? So that's the difference. But I'll show you that again. I just want to show you that specifically for the vertical method. So let's do horizontal for this next one. So here I want to group these. Now first I got to distribute my -1 through. So 4n cubed minus 7n plus 3. And then I get a positive 5n squared. And then a negative 2n minus 5. Okay, notice how each sign changed again. And then I want to group. So 4n cubed. Notice that there's nothing else that has 4n cubed in it, so it's just by itself. Same thing, 5n squared has nothing, so it's by itself. And then negative 7n and negative 2n go together. And then 3 minus 5 go together. Okay, so then I just have 4n cubed plus 5n squared. And then negative 7n minus 2n is negative 9n. And 3 minus 5 is 2, negative 2. Okay, so then that would be my answer. Okay, here let's try vertical method again. So 13p squared minus 13p plus 13. And then it looks like 20p squared would go underneath there. Plus 12p plus 4. Okay? Now remember it said to change your sign or add opposite. So add, and then this negative 20 becomes positive 20. Positive 12 becomes negative 12. Positive 4 becomes negative 4. Okay, so now I want to combine my like terms. So 13p squared plus 20p squared is going to be 33p squared. Negative 13p plus a negative 12p is negative 25p. And 13 plus a negative 4 is a positive 9. Okay, so that would be my final answer. And now for this last one here, I'm going to do horizontal again. So here it's positive, so I don't have to distribute, so I can go straight to grouping. There are two x squared, so negative 9x plus 10x squared. And then negative 3x does not go with anything, so it's just by itself. And then I get 1 plus 5. So now I put my like terms together. So negative x squared plus 10x squared is a 1x squared. Negative 3x doesn't have anything, so it's just negative 3x. And then 1 plus 5 gives me 6. And that would be my final answer. Okay? So remember, pick a method and work with that one for all your problems. You don't need to do both, just one. And then also, when you distribute a negative through, make sure to distribute it to everything, not just one thing. Okay? Have fun and be good for the sub. Thanks.